Still getting over a little bit of sickness, but I've got some medicine, so things are working out. My voice is a little bit taxed from it. Been working on graphics, and kind of a roller coaster ride for the past few days. I watched another video, and in that video a guy was referencing, and this was just a day ago that it was listed, that I guess maybe one of the people in charge of the Atari 2600 Plus project is saying that it will play new games and that they're actually going to be selling new games. Okay, so that's great, you know. I mean, so what I've heard, I've heard a little bit of what's it's probably, you know, somewhere in the middle. It's probably not going to play DPC or DPC Plus games, but it probably will play all the other games, because there are, you know, there are several types of Atari cartridges. Like if you think of Nintendo, you might know about their mappers, where Nintendo games can have more graphics or better sound or lots of other stuff going on by using different mappers. Well, the Atari games are kind of like that, in that the ROM size and whether or not the cartridge uses bank switching comes into play. Now, when the game Chess was coming out for the Atari, they didn't know if they could fit it in a cartridge. So the game Chess was about to come out, and it works. Chess is actually, but the screens in between the decisions are straight up like one of the first nausea-inducing things in video games that I've seen. It's like a color cycling that's pattern is just the perfect speed to make you sick. So I think in the home versions, you know, the flashbacks and systems that have it and things like that, they cut that out. They actually removed that nauseating loading screen in between the computer's move decisions and your own decisions. But that's not the point. The point is, when they were developing the chess game, they were like, how are we gonna, you know, even fit chess in like 2K or 4K or something? How can we do that with such a tiny ROM space? Because it's not just the graphics, it's the programming of the AI. You try to program, you know, an AI game where it's going to be paying attention to your moves and trying to counter. And so they have to have programmed your most logical, typical responses to, and it's not just, you know, it's not just frequency of responses, and it's the move number. So, you know, you can't say that with a certain type of randomness or frequency, a pawn will move to this square. You can't just simply add some kind of randomizer and say, oh, at a certain time this or that might happen. You have to pay attention to the other side's moves. So it's like after you start breaking the chess game open and you have some power pieces moving, like the back row, you start getting the center, you start watching for the opponent to castle, you try to, you know, position your queen or move some power pieces out there. It's going to be a lot harder for a computer to know what to do next. So they're thinking, how do we even make this game on such a small cartridge? And then they invented the method of bank switching. Bank switching is where you have increments of memory, and then those can be accessed, but none of them all at once. So when I say, like in my past videos, I make 32K bank switching cartridges, what that means is that in each of those sections here, we have 4K, and it says here 3,796 bytes of ROM. That's 4 kilobytes, essentially, of ROM space. And then I have 8 different banks. The graphics are all jam-packed into the 8th bank. And then if you can see here, I've put enough data into the first bank to where I have 1,991 bytes, roughly 2 kilobytes, meaning I have used in data alone 2 kilobytes of space on the first bank of ROM. eventually, after I filled in all of the AI move sets, the controller move sets, the graphics, and then everything to go along with the graphics, several of those banks are going to be filled up, and this game's going to end up being much of a 32K bank switching cartridge. But and eventually, I guess chess was maybe a 4K game, but I don't think they didn't use bank switching with it, but they invented the capability of bank switching to try to address the issues with that game. And then later, several games used bank switching. Most Atari games, if I'm correct about this, are 2 or 4K, but if you have an 8K Atari game, then that's 2 banks that switch. If you have a 16K, that's 4 banks that can switch between each other. And what it means is they can draw data and use it, but you can't combine banks. So to the best of my knowledge, you can't have 8K of graphics because of the amount of RAM that the Atari 2600 has and how much data it can move at one time. So you're not able to put 8 kilobytes of graphics data on the screen with an Atari 2600 at one time. You can put close to that amount of 4 or somewhere around that 2 to 4, but you can't have, obviously you can't have all graphics data because you have to have, your data for what to do with the graphics coming in there being calculated, which is it's streamed through what in assembly is called an accumulator. Okay, so data is added to and taken off of the accumulators in a stack. And not to get too complicated, but that stack is not infinite, and things have to be put in a certain order to where everything is streamlined. But in BASIC, which then becomes assembly, you can see where a accumulator is incremented or decremented. It's, data is added to it or taken off of the stack. But there are limits. The limit is how much memory is moving through RAM from the ROM space. So this ROM size 32K, as long as they can support 32K bank switching, I'm good. It would be even better. It would sweeten the pot for me, so to speak, if it would take 32K super chip. And I'm really hoping that they will have those, and they probably will. The reason I would think they wouldn't have, DPC Plus is for a couple of reasons. First off, Stella has to know how to deal with it, and so they may have to have some type of decoding thing going on to allow Stella to use it, and whoever owns or uses or made that may not be part of who's using Stella for this 2600 Plus. But also, and I touched on this in the last video, it could be because it's going to be a ROM uploading situation. So it's possible that it's not reading right off of the ROM to the emulator. It's quickly, because it's a tiny amount of memory, 32K is nothing. 64K is nothing. It is not even a blink of an eye to modern memory. You see if you can find an image you took with a camera that's not 4 megabytes in today's world. It's so much grossly, hugely more memory being used, more space being taken up than ever before. We're into terabytes and things like that now. Back when this stuff was out, a 5 or a 10 megabyte hard drive was incredibly huge. And things, a text that you saved might take 5K or 9 or 10K or 12 kilobytes or something, and that'd be good. That'd be very large. So to move 2, 4, 8, 16, 32K off the cartridge onto this newer system that is emulating the 6502, that's emulating the Atari system, and then belch it up onto the screen, if it's a DPC Plus or a DPC cartridge, it may not even be able to properly upload the data from that cartridge. But there shouldn't be any problems with it uploading 32K from a bank switching, because it's going to have to be able to upload 8K, which would be bank switching. It's going to have to be able to upload 16K, or it's going to cut out several games, several more games. All right, so all that being said, I have added some new stuff here, and I'm just going to show it quickly. And I'll show the two parts that go with each image to show some of the drawings that are going to be going into this game. And then I might show something too that helps people realize the type of balance that's going on here. So this is the dragon uppercut move, okay, for Ryu. And I'll back it up a little. You know, he's probably going to be about, you know, yay big on the screen. Okay, and then here's the first part of that move, the second part of it. Then here we have his squatting. Now to save space, that's also going to be jumping. So when he jumps, his knees are pulled up as he's jumping. That's going to be the same as if he squats down onto the ground. That's a trick to save space. There we have the beginning of the sweep kick and also the flying side kick. We'll have the missile sprite go right here and be between 4 and 8 pixels wide, and whatever the width of his leg is. So there will be that extension there to make that effectively a side kick. Here's his fireball stance here, the Hadoken fireball. And as you can see, he's got the more deep angled stance. He's got the arms, the hands are together here. His headband's floating a little bit. He's got his back foot. I tried to do the best I could. We'll see when it's in the game. And I'm going to do that in this video just for fun. I'm going to go ahead and put that up there. I'll replace the, or I'll add it, but then I'm going to tell it in code that when I push the button to show that next thing, just to get a view of what it looks like. So you'll be seeing it in real time when I see it. There's his kick. Up here will be a missile sprite for the foot, just to add a little more extension there. There's his punch that you've already seen if you watched my last video. His normal stance, I went and changed grays, used to be blue, and this is not exact. This is not what his actual stance looked like. I think that's trapped in the Ken folder. So if I go look in Ken, and this one's still blue from when I originally drew this, but there he is. Yeah, that's a little closer representation of what his outfit ended up looking like. So those are some moves I've drawn. Now I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say, look down here where my little cursor's wigging. Bank 8, and I have 1,825 bytes, almost 2 kilobytes of ROM space left in my 8th bank. 8th bank is where all the graphics go to. So I've got the stuff for Ryu Punch, M1, but I'm going to call it, we'll just call it Hadoken. We're going to call it Ryu Hadoken. I don't know why I pushed K there. There we go. Ryu Hadoken. Now up on the other one, we'll call it Ryu Hadoken. Okay. So that means for the third one, it's going to be Hadoken. For the fourth one, of course, it's going to be Hadoken with a 2 on the end because it's the second instance. Okay, now the system is prepared for when I push the button, it's going to put the new graphic that I put up there to test out. And this is the process I'm going to use for all of the moves until I can see what they all look like on the screen and that I'm okay with them. So I've got Ryu's fireball, I've got the second Ryu, I've got his punch, his second punch. So now, right after him, I'm going to go ahead and type in the Ryu Hadoken, and then I'm going to type in Ryu Hadoken 2. Of course, at the end I want it to return to this bank, and on the second one I want it to return to this bank. Now I have a little space in here just to make sure everything works the way I want it to. I'm going to go ahead and just copy the color from Punch 2 to Hadoken 2. This will copy the XY data, the size data, the size multiplier for the missile, and the XY location of the sprite for the second instance. Usually they're the same, but perhaps something will be different, and so I won't have the second and first instance be the same for XY. They're going to of course be different for colors because I'm combining two colors. So this missile here, I'm going to set this to 0 briefly because I don't have, I'm not going to have any missile addition to the Hadoken. So in this case, the Hadoken is a stance. It's not using additional missile graphics to enhance the image, to make it the kick stick out or make the punch stick out. Now I'm going to go to my graphics converter. I'm going to open and find Hadoken A. Here's Hadoken A. I'm going to go to the sprite and create the basic image of it. Now it says player 1, so I'll remember to change that to 0 so that this applies to this particular sprite. Copy. I'm going to shrink this down because I'm using it more than once. Now here I'm going to look. This looks like the second instance is actually the one that I'm going to be addressing with this. So I'm going to put that in the second folder. And then I'm going to change 1 to 0 because that's the sprite that I'm dealing with. Now the second instance is done. I'm going to open the image to code converter again, and this time go to Hadoken B. The background color is congruent. I'm going to click base. Now this is my new one. Looks like I've got a lot of empty space there, and I can getting rid of that empty space is very important because your x coordinate will be fine regardless of the length. So I know because these are all zeros, none of that is necessary. I can delete all that extra space. Now if I go to the second one, it added 3 here, but all the way down to the top of his head, it does this sometimes. I can delete that additional space too. So now I've compressed my sprites so that they're taking up as little room as possible. I'm going to change player 1 back to 0, and now we're going to see something. 1825, save, 1757. Okay, let's go to my all programs. Okay, let's go to my accessories and my calculator, and we're going to say 1825 minus 1757. I just used up 68 bytes. Okay, I just used up 68 bytes of space for those two. Now let's play the game. There. Now we have the Hadoken stance. Graphics, and of course a little fireball is going to pop out of his hands and go across the screen. when that part's done. Now, of course, I'm going to cycle through the other 3 backgrounds just to get an idea of what that looks like. And actually, before I do that though, I'm going to increase his X coordinate slightly so that he scoots to the right when he does this move just a hair. So here we have X 40, I probably copied X 40 for that. And we'll say X 42 just to see how that looks. And it looks like I put my data at the end of the picture here, which I really don't want it there. I'm going to go ahead and put that way up here. There we go. Now again, the location of this data is all going to change. Now people might notice that when I type out BASIC, it looks slightly like a different OS or a different programming language, like I'm using C or C++ or something. Well, I'm actually adopting the patterns that are like C or C++. I learned C in high school, and it's a very useful, fun programming language. You can use it to make games and do almost anything. And you're supposed to put space in between things in this BASIC. It helps the system. It helps things work right. Okay, so to make things easier for me to see and work with and tell where things are, I use indentations and a tiering system, very much like what you'd see in the C operating system. Now I can tell he's a little high up on his feet. So I'll need to remember, and it makes sense for that because he's bent down a little bit. So I'll need to remember to scoot him down what looks to be maybe 1 or 2 pixels when he does this move to keep him on the right level here. So you can see that for one rather large sprite to be added with this 2-pane, 3-color method that I've come up with, I need that roughly 64 bytes, somewhere around that, meaning that it's about 32 bytes per image. Now, so you can do your math, and when you start out your game, if you know you want to leave a certain amount of room for backgrounds, or you don't know how much room you want to use for backgrounds, then you can just add all of your sprite data, and then know that for these, and these are much larger sprites than what anyone usually uses on a 2600 game. You can use 8x8s, and those are going to use up much less space in your game. I'm going to go ahead and put him down about 1 or 2 on the y-axis so that works slightly better. Just go about here, and I think we're going to go with 82 at first and just kind of see if that puts him on level ground. Later on, there will be variables that the X and Y coordinates are attached to, yeah, he's too low now, that are constantly changing based on your location on the screen and what your character's doing. So these little definers are not going to be there. Excuse me. They're actually going to be defined at the beginning of each level, and by using that variable instead of some critical defining number, there we go, that's perfect, you can constantly manipulate that data. You can say, so you know, if you say at the beginning of your loop a specific location for X and Y, of course that can't move, nothing can move. Once your loop comes back through, once it sees that instruction, you're stuck there. So what I would do is, before the loop, I would say, you know, player 0x equals 42, player 0y equals 81. but then even before that, I would say player 0x equals whatever, maybe n or whatever. Pick a variable. It could be one of those newer variables for the super chip. So if it's once it's a variable, then right there would say player 0y equals n, and then on my joystick, that's going to be manipulating something that's also animating the sprite, and it's moving the data for the XY locations. And you're going to want to be able to learn how to control these things. When a character jumps, you're creating kind of an instance where you don't necessarily have absolute control over everything. That character's jumping and then landing, and you don't want the character to be able to be just moved around anywhere when they're up in the air. They might have a little bit of control, but not much, or they might have no control. In your game, you might make it so when you press the button and you jump, you do a complete jump. Perhaps a complete jump will be a set number of pixels high for a certain amount of time, and then back down to that level. So it's really up to you and how you program it, but you're never in your main loop unless you're trapping a sprite somewhere on the screen. Are you going to be defining a strict number for your XY locations? Those are going to be variables, and then those variables are what are going to be changed all the time. Okay, so we've just seen how that is. Now I wanted to address something that is not related to my Atari games, or at least as far as I know, it's not related to my Atari games. It's not related to anything like that. I had a comment where somebody said, he said, I thought you blew your head off with a shotgun. And glad to see you're okay, bro, or something like that. Okay, a person said that in my comments. Now, I just let comments go. If I see a comment that I think I need to delete, I'll delete it. I went ahead and responded to it. Of course, I didn't do that. Now, I have children, and I love them very much. I spend every single day raising kids, cooking food, cleaning, washing up, doing dishes, putting kids in bed, waking them up, getting them ready for school, monitoring them. It's every single day of my life. I'm a stay-at-home dad. Okay, so no, obviously I did not blow my head off with a shotgun. I don't know who has, trafficked the idea that I've committed suicide, but I'm not. I'm not suicidal. I've often thought that people wanted me to do that, but that's just because of how people treat me. Like when everyone treats you like shit, you wonder if they don't want you around, that kind of thing. Yeah, but no. To come up with things like that. So just so you know, I'm not a suicidal person. I don't plan on killing myself. If all of a sudden they find me and my head's been taken off with a shotgun blast, just know that I am not suicidal. And someone did leave a comment saying, I thought you blew your head off with a shotgun. So apparently somebody has, propagated the idea that I committed suicide sometime in the past. He even said Mandela effect, which would lead me to believe that there's some type of evidence of this. Okay, now, evidence that created a Mandela effect where everyone thinks that I blew my brains out with a shotgun, but here I am alive doing videos and stuff. Now, I've been making videos on YouTube for 15 plus years. I started with videos of teaching my daughter to skateboard, went on to random occurrences in my yard, remembering my kids, guitar work, playing guitar, and stop motion animation videos with some rock and roll, working on video games, stuff like that. So yeah, I've been around, and I don't plan on going anywhere or doing anything crazy like that. So I hope that doesn't deter people from visiting my channel or watching my videos, that there's kind of a really whack comment like that sitting there. But yeah, I'm not a As far as I know, I'm not a dimensional variant of someone else that was already in this world that committed suicide. I don't plan on committing suicide. I don't have a shotgun, so I definitely didn't blow my head off with a shotgun. And that comment is there. I'm trying to show people how to make graphics on an Atari 2600 and make their own video games in a really cool way that gives you really good graphics. It's a lot of fun. This is a video for people to try out something that they may not even know is possible. Okay. So there we have the Hadoken fireball hand motion programmed into it. We've still got Terry's little punch going on there. And I'm going to do this with all the other things, the graphics that I just showed you. So when this dragon uppercut is put in there to look, I'm just going to have to put it somewhere up in the sky where it might be when he's doing that. And then of course in the programming, that's going to be really fun to program. Now I'm sure I'm the only person that's ever programmed the Hadoken fireball in a video game. And hey, I'll go ahead and show you if you want to see it. That's from the original Street Fight World. They used the DPC Plus kernel. Oops, I'm not going to do that. I'll go straight to Stella. And I think I put this all in an old folder, so it would be easier to deal with. I have a lot of games I've worked on. Street Fight World. Oh boy. It might be this one. Let's see. Let's see if it's this one real quick. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Now, as you can see, they're not flipping yet. That shows me what version of this game this is. You can see the flicker when more than one sprite is on the same horizontal plane. You can see, there we go, so judging by how this is behaving, I have an idea of what version of the DPC Plus version of Street Fight World this is. Okay, there we go. Now there are several characters. There's kind of an error going on there with the graphics. I don't know what's doing that. So I'll go ahead and leave. Okay. Now what I did was, after I decided this wasn't going to happen with DPC Plus, I changed the folders to what I called Street Fight Construct, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and on and on and on. And then those would all be places where I could work on the game again and try to change it. So here we have, what is this, Street Fight World 32K. I don't think this is it. No, this was working with different backgrounds. So, you know, this is a whole history of this is going to be put together. There we go. This was the larger sprites. Just kind of seeing what they would look like on the standard kernel. I don't think this is it either. Let me see. No. No. So okay, I'm sure it's in here somewhere though. Let's see here. Whew. Kind of look through all of these. Now originally Cute Beach was called Sexy Beach, but I figured the word was a little too racy and it might deter people from wanting to buy it or try it out or play it. So I changed it to Cute Beach to go with Cute Kong and several other cute games that I'm working on here. KYEWT, cute. So, and so the cute ones are actually on the main lists to be worked on. Okay, here's Street Fight Construct 5, and this one might actually, there we go. Now lower resolution backgrounds, there we go. It's got hit bars. Now in this mode, my character can't take any damage. Now it's got the flips programmed. I'm actually going to reset this, and let's change the background. Yeah, there we go. There, this is better. Now as you can see, I'm throwing fireballs. And the fireballs are down and then diagonal down and then towards. They're a quarter circle towards the opponent. And then the attack button. There we go. He ducked it. Now, that's an AI controlled opponent. He's programmed to attack you. He can't harm me right now, but if I remove that, then his attacks will harm me. I don't know if I can turn off the music. Yeah. There, that's a lot easier to deal with. I'm going to have to change the music. Have some other songs that I really like that I think sound better. Now that was one thing that I was wondering how to get to work. If the character throws a fireball and then jumps past you, the fireball will actually change direction. Notice how he ducked that fireball. Notice how he's taking damage when the fireball hits him. This game is working. This is a working Street Fighter II DPC Plus video game. And it works in two-player mode as well. Two people can play this and fight with each other. It was so close to being finished, you know. But it requires the ARM processor, which I don't want to use. There we go. I just beat him. So you can see I've programmed fireballs into this game. Here's Ryu throwing fireballs. There are things about it I don't like, and there are things I like. The resolution of the backgrounds had to constantly be reduced to fit all the moves of the characters in the games. There's a lot of flicker going on everywhere because whenever somebody throws a fireball, once you're on that same horizontal plane, you get the flickering. I didn't like that. You can do dragon uppercuts. There's one. Another one. She can do them too. So if I restart, I'll go ahead and pick a different level. I'll pick her. Her name's Sakura, but I call her Blossom. There's her dragon uppercut. Turned it into a charge attack. Like when you press down and charge, kind of like Guile's flip kick. But I will probably program the newer ones to function very much like the original dragon uppercuts. But the way these work, and it's a little harder to do with a keyboard, is the same way, the fireballs work the same way as they do in the arcade. It's down, then towards, in a quarter circle motion. Now this mode is set up to test the fireball. That's all. So the only weapon, the only attack that does any damage right now is the fireball. Now if you notice, he's taking damage whenever I hit him with the fireball. But not when he hits me, not when I punch him or kick him or anything like that. And that can be changed. It's just, this is for testing purposes. And he's almost dead. There we go. Okay. So that was the DPC Plus Street Fighter World that I programmed. It's about 8 years old now. Okay, maybe I'll show the other games that I programmed later. I'll play Run Out and I'll play Titan Axe and just give you an idea, because I've programmed a lot of stuff on here. Only Titan Axe was published, only briefly. If people want Titan Axe, I can sell them a copy of Titan Axe. I own the game. I'm not going to put, obviously, I'm not going to put the graphics that they designed on it. I've got my own graphics to put on it, so I don't have to try to pay somebody or deal with that. But that's a taste of what that was. Now the newer one, in my humble opinion, looks a lot better. It's, you know, smaller graphics, but this here, I think looks better right there. I think that looks much, much better than what I've achieved with the combining of the sides. I think this looks better. So it's a little more Atari centric kind of graphics, but I think it looks much, much better than what I've done before. All right, so I've shared a little bit of that, updated a little bit of that. I'm still alive. Yeah. My name on there was Papa. That's the reason my name was Papa, is because that's my name. I mean, I've been called Papa more in the past 20 years than I've been called by my actual name. So that's what people have, even my wife back then, when we were still together, called me Papa all of the time. My mother-in-law called me Papa. All my kids called me Papa. You know, cats and dogs and squirrels call me Papa. Whatever. That's my name.